Hello everyone, welcome back to Geek Disorders web series over HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, and jQuery. This is Lavik and I'll be walking you through this series. Today we're going to be going over how to set the height and width of your HTML elements. And to do this, we are doing this in CSS. So let's go ahead and get started. Right now I have a section element, and I'm going to add inside the section element a paragraph. Okay, and I'm just going to put this as some text. There we go. Alright, go ahead and close my paragraph. Nope, if I could type, there we are. And let's just see what we got so far. Launch this, and there we are. Alright, and up here in my styles, first off, I'm going to create a few styles for my body, and all I'm going to do is give it a background color. Alright, let's just make it gray. Alright, and now I'm going to give my section a background color. Oops. Did that kind of wrong there. There we are. Alright, let's make that yellow. There we are. Okay. Now let's work with our paragraph here. Okay, with our height and width, let's start off with the width. I can run this one more time so you can see it. Right now the default width is auto. Auto, what that does is it is 100% of the width of the containing element, which here the containing element is a section, but the section has no width, so its default is auto, so it's 100% of the body, which is the viewable area. So that's the reason it goes all the way across. Alright, so let's go ahead and change this width up some. Let's just put width. Alright, and I'm going to put 200 pixels. Save and run. Okay, well, what's wrong there is I forgot to do one thing. I forgot to set a background color for my paragraph, so that's the reason it looks like the yellow is going all the way across, because that is actually our section. So let's do that real fast. Background color, and let's set that to blue. Alright, we should be able to tell this time. Let's run this one more time. And there we go, there's 200 pixels. And just to show y'all, if I take out this width, save, and run, you'll see it goes all the way across. It covers up all the yellow because it's set to auto by default. Add that back in, and let's go with 300 pixels. Alright, so we can set the width with pixels and points and stuff, and that's all absolute. We can also set it with a relative. Let's use percents, and there we go, 50%. When you use a relative, remember it's based off the element it is in. So the width is 50% of the width of the section. Since the section and the doesn't have a width, it's 100% of the viewable area. If I resize my browser here, you can see it does change with it. Alright, there we go. Alright, so let's take a look at height now. Alright, height works basically the same as width with a couple of exceptions. Alright, I can set my height to, let's say, 60 pixels. See what that looks like. There we go, there's 60 pixels. Okay, but if I switch over to using something relative, like percents, and I set this to, say, 25%, and I save and run this in Firefox, you'll see that the width is just big enough for the content. Okay, it actually does not change. I can set this at 75%. You will see no change. Okay, this is one of the exceptions where height works different than width. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, with height, we use relative. It's based off the containing element, which is the section. If that containing element does not have a absolute set height, then a relative height will not work. Okay, and our section does not have an absolute set height. Okay, so it's using relative, which is auto, and so what it does is our height of our paragraph defaults to auto, which is just enough height to contain our content. So how do we fix this? Well, we give the section a height. an absolute height. So let's do 500 pixels, and let's see if this changes anything. Let's launch in Firefox, and there we go. Our section in yellow is now 500 pixels in height, and our section in blue is now has a height of 75% of that. Okay, so if you ever want to use a percent for height, remember that the containing section has to have a absolute set height. Now, let's if I was to do something like add another section here, okay, and or actually let's make this a div so we don't have to do any classes or anything. Alright, and I'll move this stuff over. Alright, and let's close our div. Alright, now if I add right here some CSS for my div, okay, and I put a height and I put 500 pixels, okay. Now here I changed this to be a relative, and I put 50%, and I save. I launch this. Okay, I forgot my colon there, so let's save and run this again. Alright, and there we go. And now you can see that since I set the height, an absolute height for my div, this section is contained in it, and it is 50% of that, and inside that is the paragraph, which is now 75%. So somewhere in the containing elements, you have to have an absolute value set, or for each element inside that one, if you're going to use percents to work. Okay, just so somewhere in the line you have to have an absolute value set for the height, and then every element you put inside that, you can set a relative value if you like. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple other things here. There you can also do a min and max height, min and max width. So let's take a look at those. So when doing that kind of stuff, I'm going to remove everything, or well, I'm going to remove my div here. So let's add that back in. Remove the div from here. Alright. Okay. So let's look at this. For our section, we're just the width is going to be auto. Okay. But it being auto, I want to set a minimum width. Okay. So I put minimum dash width. Okay. And colon. And then I can set this. I'm going to do 300 pixels. Alright, now let's launch this in Firefox. Okay, so here is the our width isn't set, so it's auto, so it stretches all the way across. We're looking at the yellow. If I resize my browser here, oops, I resize my browser, you see it starts moving, but as I get smaller, if you notice right here, it no longer starts to just be auto, where it keeps getting smaller with me, and I'll make that bigger so you can see it better. Let's go up to 400 or 500 pixels. Save that. Alright. Now if you watch, as I resize at this point right here, you notice it stops being relative, where it's based off the width of my browser. See, I can get all blue there. And right here I have a scroll bar at the bottom of my screen. And see, that is still a minimum of 500 pixels. Okay. And it works the same way with the height. You can set a minimum height, and at a certain point you can say you want it to be relative, and it'll stretch and shorten the height as you resize the browser. But at a certain point, whenever you set the minimum height, it's going to stop and start making that scroll bar where you have to scroll up and down depending on how many pixels or whatever points you set for the minimum height. Now I can do a maximum height, okay, and it works basically the same way. Let's take a look at that. Let's actually do a maximum width, okay, and here It's easier to see. I'm gonna make this smaller, make that 300 pixels, and I'm gonna make my maximum. I'm gonna make that 600 pixels. Okay. Or actually, let's do 800. All right. Launch this, and there we go. You see it. I don't have a width set, but my maximum width is 800, so it's set to a max of 800 right now. If I start to resize, you notice that it starts to move with me, starts to be relative. But at a certain point, we get this scroll bar at the bottom, and it's reached its minimum width of 300 pixels. All right, so that's been like the min and max for both the width and height, and they work basically the same. We've also looked at the width. You can use absolute or relative. We looked at the height. You can use absolute or relative. But remember, when using relative, that somewhere down the line in one of your containing elements, that you have to have a absolute value for your height set if you want any relative elements within that to work. Okay. If not, it'll default back to auto, which is just big enough for the content to fit in. Alright, well, this has been Live with Geek Disorder. If y'all have any comments over this video, comments or questions, please feel free to leave them, and I'll try to get back to them. And hope y'all have a great day, and I will see y'all next time.